Okay, everybody, we have a very special guest today. I am honored to have Helene Blanchette, a trailblazing leader in global business, digital transformation, and the printing industry, join us for this conference. Helene was the first woman to break into senior leadership in the team for FujiXerox AP. She led digital marketing transformation across 14 countries and held global VP roles in Fortune 500 companies. Her journey began at just 23 years old, co-directing 5 racket sports clubs with 25,000 members before becoming the first woman president of the Gutenberg Association in Canada and the Tennis and Racket Sports Federation. At the peak of her career, Helene moved to Asia alone, unknown, and rose to become the GM of Asia Pacific, proving that leadership knows no boundaries. Beyond business, Helene is deeply committed to social impact, serving on the board of the Child Creativity Lab and advising International Sanctuary to empower survivors of human trafficking. She is a sought-after speaker and has commanded the stage and room at the World Economic Forum and the Vatican Power Women Summit. Helene is also dedicated to sharing her knowledge, mentoring future leaders, and empowering women in business and technology as the director of the Schmid Center for International Business and clinical professor of management at Chapman University. Argyros? How do you say that, Ellen?
Argyros.
Argyros College of Business and Economics. Today, she joins us to share her insights on breaking barriers, driving innovation, and creating a more equitable future for women in printing, technology, and beyond. Please welcome me in joining. Please welcome me in joining Helene Blanchette to the conference. And Helene, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence, and I truly mean that.
Deborah, you know I'm a fan of yours. Anytime you say, can you, I say yes.
I really appreciate that. We met while you were in charge of Xerox worldwide marketing. And I can tell you when you left, I cried. I cried for a few days. I was like, there goes my best ally in the printing industry. But we have kept in touch. I follow everything you do. It's just such important work. And you are one of those people that is authentic about everything you do. So I just want to thank you, one human to another, for caring about people.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we had a little technical difficulty and a background change, but we are back. So, and perfect timing, because now it's time to ask you the first question, Ellen. You've broken multiple glass ceilings in your career. What drove you to keep pushing forward in industries and organizations where women were rarely seen at the top?
Yes, and I think I think it's naivety. I never saw it as I'm a woman. It's just I thought certain things needed to be changed, or I was interested in something and I was just going for it, and never realized that it was bothering people because I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised in my family, you know, you were a woman or a man, it didn't matter. It's as long as you do what you want and what you're really passionate about. And you know, my father never made me feel like you can't do that because you're a woman. So therefore, I never went through life as thinking, oh, I'm a woman, I shouldn't have that. I did get some, you know, I did hit some walls, but when I hit some walls, I looked at them as a weakness on their part as opposed as something that I couldn't do, right? Things like, really? You go, really? And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that. So when I became the president of the federation, I was 23. I mean, it was a big blow for, you know, during an election that a 23-year-old woman who was already in charge of, which was me, already in charge of several tennis, squash, racquetball clubs, become the president of the Quebec Federation of Tennis. Within a month, there was a coup. They tried, I'm telling you, there was a coup internally among the board trying to push me out because it was disrupting to them, right? That I was a woman, and I've never looked at it that way. And I'm going, really? What did I do that bothered you? And they didn't succeed, but uh, but I looked at them and said, you would have done that just because I'm a woman? I couldn't even fathom that, right? But and trying to understand, how did they feel threatened about that, right? Why would the fact that I'm a different gender, to me, people are brains, blood, humans, emotions. That's how I see the world. I don't see them in genders or none of that. Colors, genders I'm really blind about that. To me, it's always about um, who are you in your mind? Who are you in your brain? Who are you as a human? How? So anyway, so that's I guess it's that naivety of not understanding why someone would actually choose or not choose someone because of they're a woman or not.
Yeah. Sometimes, I am definitely a proponent of visibility. I think it's very important to see women on stages, on covers of magazines, giving keynote speeches, not just at the women's meeting or lunch or breakfast or something like
Mm.
that. So you it, I have to say that it is a little different for I'm a Gen Xer, and I have to assume that you're a
Oh,
boomer.
I'm an advanced baby boomer.
Okay. So there is a different mindset of boomers when it comes to this, like, oh, and you're not the only one that I come across in that bracket that is, and the Gen Xers have some of that. Like, we're like, what do you mean? We try to fight back, but then the boomers would just say, because I told you to do it, go do it. And we'd be like, fine, we'll go do it, because we didn't want to get in trouble. But now there is more of a if I don't see a woman doing it, sometimes women take that on as I can't do it. The opportunity is not open for me.
Mhm.
So but I
Mm.
think that if women adopted your attitude, they might apply for more things. They might try to do more things, whether or not there's ever been a woman. If you look at Sabine Gelderman, she's she's the chair of Drupa. She's the head of Drupa, first woman in 100 years ever. So if she only looked at that as if, well, why would I think I could be the first if there hasn't been any? But you can be the first, is what I'm trying to say to everybody out there, right?
And you can you can decide to shut down all of the stupidities that are going to come with it, right? Because of course people are going to. I've had people telling me, like sometimes men meeting me in social networking, and that's, like they would say, at work, a lot of people find you attractive, but they think you should dumb it down a little. It's like, to me, it's like these kinds of comments are, so you shouldn't be in my circle, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be in my environment because
Yeah.
it's not, why would I do that in life? I have one life to live. I have one, I have a lot of gratitude about a lot of things, and that allows me to try to accomplish what I'm passionate about. So people that have such diminishing opinions or they reflect their own problems on you, it should be a reflection of them, not a reflection of you. And at the end of the day, I have a lot, I coach senior executive women often, men too, because I don't want to be discriminatory, but uh, happens that I love, I love coaching women. And, um, and a lot of them, I take them at a stage where they say, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get that promotion. My boss told me that if I can't be at the head office, which is, I live in the suburb, and I have two children, and if I'm not at the head office every day, then, I'm not going to be able to do the politics and think of, so you're going to have to choose between, being always there for your family or at the office, but you can't have both. And so then that narrative got into her brain to the point where she thought, yeah, I had a dream of becoming a vice president, but I will never happen. That will never happen, right? And I don't I don't believe in that. So to me, it's okay, let's be strategic here. So we know that women will not necessarily be able to go for the happy hour or go into some clubs that you wouldn't want to be there anyways. They're not going to necessarily be in the men's bathroom, when conversations happen. But you can be a lot more smart and strategic and have fun in finding other ways to be able to be very visible and to get the same results. And it's by that kind of strategic coaching that I made them succeed to actually achieve that job without leaving their kids, without leaving their home, but just being smart on how you apply your visibility within the company in a very strategic way. And I think that that's where it becomes quite a fun game, because men have the play field to be able to do politics very, very easily, because, and it's not even their fault. That's the way the world, became biased by nature, because corporations were originally done that way, and it just grew to be that way. So they have way more possibilities to do that. But women are also very, very smart, right? I don't know if I've ever told you, but some of them have, I was saying, where is everybody going in the company at least once, right? And she said, well, maybe the kitchen. I said, so go do your sales meeting in the kitchen, right? And then all the vice presidents would go and say, what are you guys talking about? No, we're talking about next month, sales projection, which clients would, oh, can I barge into your conversation? And then suddenly there's a dynamic with the senior leadership team, and all and then suddenly they get known, and they get, oh, why don't we ask so and so to come and do the fire chat, because she's got this, right? And now you're starting to be smart, using your smartness to be able to just um, create your own path. Because at the end of the day, and I'm taking the stage here, I'm sorry, you probably have another question. But what I start with in all my clients, and I'm mentoring a young woman since yesterday again, and I did the same thing, is you're the CEO of your life, right? So if you want to be in leadership, you should start by looking at how you are managing your own company, your own self, right?
Yeah. Speaking of leadership, you've held global VP roles in Fortune 500 companies. What leadership qualities helped you thrive at that level?
I will say respect, honesty, professionalism. I never let down my professionalism everywhere. Understanding cultural differences, that was such a powerful skill that I've developed over time. Innovation. I always try to do things differently, not because I like it, I like creativity, but because I always go to the source of understanding the why of things. I don't just take someone and say, well, yeah, but that doesn't work. If you tell me, oh, that doesn't work, or that works well, I will go for the why. Why is it working well? Why is it not working well? And I go down, and that's what happened with. I'll give you a good example that the printing industry will understand. Remember the Xerox one-to-one lab that I created?
Yes.
Okay, so the Xerox one-to-one lab started because Xerox was investing a lot of money into data-driven marketing, right? Data-driven marketing, printing, which was at the time, well, I'm talking, let's go back to 2003 now. 2003 is 22 years ago. And 22 years ago, not a lot of commercial printers were doing variable data. So here they were investing a lot of money. I'm talking about hundreds of millions into, some of our leaders. And then at one point, the market was not absorbing it, right? You had like a high cost and all of that. So one of the research center was in Canada. So they asked me, they said, Helene, why isn't the market adopting it as fast as what we do? Because we're investing a lot of money into this. And then people around me are saying, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that, it's because of this. There was so many because of. We're too expensive. We're too, people go straight for the core of it. We're too expensive. And it's got to be more than that. So I went out around Canada because I was already traveling. I went around Canada and interviewed 200 CEOs, vice president of marketing, agencies. I had my set of questions and saying, why aren't you getting into it? We know that it's better. We know that it has a bigger response rate. What are the reason why you're not implementing it? Now I had the perfect recipe because I knew that we knew the why. And the why was, we don't know if it's working. We know it's working for this company, but we don't know if it's going to work for us. We don't know if it's going to bring the response rate that you're saying. It's more expensive. So we wonder, is the risk. So it's the risk now, the risk management that we need to do. And then they were saying it's a lot of work and we don't have the manpower to be able to do the pre-work to be able to get ready for that. But if we knew that it's working, maybe we could invest into having the people, right? So that was the loop that they were getting into. Knowing that, I started the Xerox One-to-One Lab. I went to get some of the top companies in Canada and saying, we're going to do a comparison of your current marketing versus the ones that we're going to transform with the same and we're going to drop it in the mail at the same time. We're going to do everything to the T scientifically to make sure that you have no say on what to do. And, oh, that didn't work because you sent it an hour later. Everything was exactly at the same time. It's, and the database was randomly selected and everything. And then we started to pull these major response, right? Even Reader's Digest and all of these companies that were specialists in marketing and in direct mail were seeing 200, 300, 400, 600% response rate as opposed to 2% or 3%. So
Right.
proof was there. What did we do? We went and started to do a conference across. So that's all innovation that was very out of the comfort zone of Xerox. But I was convinced, and that's if I answer the why, it's going to work, and that conviction I have is what drives me. You asked me earlier, what drives you?
Mhm.
That drives me. If I know I got the solution, and if people are just don't know or not aware or are not educated about it, we're going to do. But that exercise that lasted a year or 2 years, and just the first few, it lasted at least 2 years that we did these tests. After a while, in very good, I would say integration of sales, and everybody got excited, right? We were bringing in the commercial printer that had that client. We had the client in, we had the salespeople, and we were creating these nucleus of people. Over time, we gained 70% of the market. And then after that, you had the competition's client that was saying, can I get your programs even if I have the competitive equipment? And we would say, sorry.
Right.
So that's the kind of passion. It's better to explain it sometimes in a concrete, case study.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure. I
Because
mean, you had to go through all of that to prove your point, Uh, I would love to have that A/B test if you had a male counterpart with the same idea. If it would be like, that's a great idea, let's do that, versus everything you had to do. But that's for another point in time, and I'm glad that it has worked out for everybody now. But even though you have moved on from the printing industry, even though you are still obviously passionate about it, it was part of your life for a long time, women remain underrepresented, excuse me, in leadership roles in printing and technology in general. What systematic changes do you believe are necessary to shift the landscape?
I don't know if people are going to like what I'm going to say. I think we need to stop saying women and men, and we need to just go for the knowledge source, right? And it shouldn't be why our women, we could definitely bring, a certain sensitivity to the leadership of companies, and saying you should make an effort, because it won't be, we won't be able to achieve anything if there's not a sentiment of responsibility from men to help. So that's one thing. But once we're there, can we stop the conversation of having the women that do their own conference and the men that do their own conference? It's about understanding, who has the best knowledge about that particular subject, and be able to have that symbiosis as opposed to that division, because that polarization is always bad. We could just see it everywhere especially in the United States. We have to see it everywhere, that the minute you start being polarizing, you go us and them, or them and us. It doesn't go anywhere. It just divides. So I think that when we have these Drupa and all of these conferences, we have now cocktails that are for women in print and all of that. We should try to mingle as much as possible. And I went the other day to an event here in California that was women in trade, and there was more men in that room than there were women, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Because they had originally, like 40 years or 50 years ago, did the women in trade, because it was like Wall Street, the women of Wall Street, because the trade was such a manly world. But over time, they realized that, they started to have mentors, and that's a good way, right, to do it. You have women that should go, instead of just going for women mentors, to go for some of the leaders, and saying, mentor, can I get some mentor? Then you get to understand each other, and you get to understand the different value that completes one another, right? And women that are in the business should mentor younger men. It's like
Yeah.
that, or things like that. When you start mingling and forgetting about the gender and just looking at what knowledge can I share with you so that you are a better person, or that you're better at work, then we start the us and them. I mean, if I look back at when I was in a Japanese company in Asia, and I spent 9 years there, as you said earlier, I was the first woman vice president of FujiXerox in Asia, and Asia Pacific, actually, and China. So it was the APAC area, which the head office was in Japan, but my territory did not include Japan, because Japan was a territory on its own. But I worked for 100% Japanese company. So that was, I never looked at them as, oh, I'm a woman in their world, but I know that I disrupted their world, because they didn't do, they wanted my brain. They had to change certain things. So now they had the 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock with Helene San and all of the leaders, and everything was protocol and beautiful and perfect. And then they would say, okay, Helene San, your chauffeur has arrived. You can go back to your hotel. And God knows I didn't want to go where they were going to go. and and then they would go and do whatever they were doing at 6 o'clock before, but now they were doing it at 9 o'clock. And it's okay, because now there's more and more women in leadership, and slowly but surely it was going to blend and fade, right? So you have certain things that blend, certain things that fade, certain things that just don't belong there.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of things.
Girls Who Print has become a nonprofit association, organization, and we have a new membership program, and we have opened it up to men to join us. And I fully believe that the only way together at this point, the only way forward is together at this point. And the 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 reason, you know, I'm gonna jump in and answer my own question here for a second, and just say that one of the systematic changes that has to happen is the mindset that only a man can run a press. Just saying, that's one of the unconscious biases that sometimes people have. And that's because you have to, there's lifting involved. It's not just about running the press, it's about the whole job. And I had this conversation the other day with a gentleman who was, saying he wants the best, people for the jobs, just as everybody does, by the way. But the way he started classifying people, I was like, I don't mean to be, poking at you here, and I'm not trying to be the word police. I'm just letting you know that this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault. We all grew up this way. It's just the way we see like I said, I'm a Gen X. I see the world. I catch myself doing it sometimes. And I'm like, oh, why do I think that? Why, and I just have to stop myself. So being able to have conversations where there's no defensiveness, where there's no, the women are just yelling at me or uprising. That's not what it is. We just want to come to a common place where it is factually true that it is the best person for the job and not the best person for the job based upon who they think are the only people they should be talking to about the job. And that goes for college degrees as well.
Mm.
Or a lot of job applications require college degrees that do not, I'm sorry, require a college education. And that is something that would limit the people who could be perfect for that job to get in front of you. So that's all I'm saying.
Well, but no, not this. You're raising a good point, and I think that how I would see it is, the ones that you see that have a will to include, but feel that are trapped into their way of selecting employees. I would then say, would you be willing to do work session with me where we could, for instance, find what are the criteria for this job? And
Mhm.
let's make it into a way that you're going to be able to test each of these categories that you're saying. So if you say that the person needs to lift 25, then in the interview, you should have something that the person can demonstrate that
By
they.
the way, just like UPS, just like FedEx, just like anybody, that's a requirement of a job.
So that's it, because I can see that. I mean, if I'm going to change a cylinder and I can't do that, it's a danger first of all, because I'm
Correct.
hurting myself, right? But and all these criteria, if they're legitimate and well said, then it should be what you pass through in the interview to say if you're good for the job or not, right? And then after that, the person would be qualified or not qualified. But it's
Yeah.
about working with them to make them see it and have, and that's the civilized conversation that needs to happen in helping them get there. I remember one day a guy came to me and said, Helene, you coach women? Let me help you. I laughed to begin with, and he says, let me help you, because he says it's a lot of women, try to get jobs in my company, and like they walk in, strike one, they're women, and strike two, like he kept. And I was listening to him, and I said, you're not going to help me. I'm just going to listen to you until I have an opening, and I'm going to help you, right? So
Yeah.
then I worked with him to make him understand, and then he called me about 2 months later, and he says, you know what, Ellen, I hired a woman, a Black woman, for the job, and she's damn good, thank you. And you go, wow. He evolved a little bit into his thinking, but to him, he had these like set things that
Yeah.
probably was, in his DNA of everything he's heard from a young age. And you just have to wait for that open door and say, I'm going to help you. Obviously, you don't want to waste your time on everybody, but those who you see that there's a possibility, you just work with them, right? As opposed to go frontal as is, you don't do that. And that's the worst part of trying to open someone's mind, because they get defensive.
Yeah. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to do three questions if we can get them in. This one's important because it also highlights that you do work with the International Sanctuary, where you help survivors of human trafficking get back on track for their lives. How does economic independence play a role in women's rights?
Oh, it's everything. First of all, all the credit of the job that is done is International Sanctuary, right? They have the sanctuaries. They, after a woman is rescued, go into the sanctuary. They help them in their trauma. They help them in going through a series of psychological support and healthcare support and everything. And then they start teaching them having skills and making jewelry and other skills, educate them so that they have an independence when they get out, so that they don't go back to on the street or being, they're very traumatized. So it's easy to be grabbed. Then it's so they do all the work. I help the CEOs and the leadership team in as advisor and strategist. So I want to give them all the credit. But I've been supporting them for years. I've been supporting them, in multiple ways, because I admire, and I've lived in Asia for long enough to know how important this is, and and when I moved to California, I realized that, there was like at least 17,000 women kidnapped per year, just in my backyard of Orange County, being the mecca of human trafficking in California, because there's a lot of wealthy people around, and that's so it just reinforced, my belief. So that's one thing. But I think that when we see how these women then become independent, regain their life, and often you help a woman, you help a community, which is the actual, thinking of the Sherry Blair Foundation as well, right? It's you help a woman, you help a community. So because usually they make the women around them work, and so they gain that. It's their chance to be able to gain that independence and be the human being they should be. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to see a gender. I want to see a human being that has achieved the only thing that they have in life, which is one life.
What drives your passion for mentoring and guiding the next generation of leaders?
Uh, I teach, right? I teach at university. It's so amazing. I love it. You see how I really become alive when I think
You
of the
did, you lit up.
Oh my God, it's incredible to see these, intelligent mind, and then being able to pass on that experience that I've gathered all these years is and making them reflect and develop their critical thinking. Because to me, what I've seen in all of my clients, all of my employees that, bloomed after that I mentor them, is developing their critical thinking, is developing their strategic mind, right? And this is something that it's selfish, because I thrive in making them bloom, and then I see them, succeed, and I see them, achieve what they want, and then they leave me, and then I just hear from them once in a while, and it's like a mother has, sometimes going, can you give me an update? Because I'm like in withdrawal. I'm in
Oh,
withdrawal, right? Because you just want to, it's so beautiful to see people achieve, and stop listening to their gremlin that is telling them, yeah, but not now. You can't do this. You do this. Oh no, you've been told that it's not. When you shut that gremlin, you can achieve so much. And I see it. I'm telling you, I had 100% success on people being able to uplift their life, just because, not because I'm exceptional, because I give them the tool to be exceptional.
well, I think you are exceptional. Just gonna put that in there.
Hmm.
Okay, Ellen, last question, possibly the most important. What advice would you give to women looking to create meaningful impact in their careers?
It starts with you. That's what I would say. It starts with you, because stop making the world decide for you. I don't know if I told you that in another podcast that I would have done, but I think I did, where I talked to you about my every 5 years, I decide I'm
Yes.
going to go into the next 5 years, right? Because I'm the CEO of my life, right? That doesn't mean that I didn't have like curves, like punches and curves along the way, but I always end up where I want because I'm determined. And I think that that's the first thing that people need to do. First, it starts with you. If you don't, if you constantly listen to the negative voice, which probably comes from a lot of things that you got from your 0 to 18, but at this point, let the king makes the decision and let the kid rest for a while, and then go under, reflect on what passions you. If you look at what passions you and you discover what passions you, you are going to, anything that happens between you and the passion that you're trying to achieve is going to be just like, bumps on the road, but not necessarily a wall, right? Because we all, the minute we see something, it becomes a wall. That's not it, like it's something that you can contour. If you're healthy, if you have your legs, your hands, and you have your brain, the rest you can conquer. And it starts with you. Stop listening to everybody else's. Otherwise, I would have never been anywhere, right? Even when I moved to Singapore, people would, because when people throw things at you shouldn't do that. What are you talking about? You're going to go on the other side of the world. What are you trying to achieve? What hole? I was told, what hole are you trying to fill? What hole am I trying to fill? I have no hole to fill. I have a desire to discover cultures. I have a desire to experience life. I don't have anything, but people reflect their own fear on you, and they're trying to influence what you're doing so that they don't have to face it, right? They don't have to face that sometimes their life is too boxy, right? And that they feel claustrophobic in it. So they don't want you to succeed on the other side, because that would mean that they're not thinking properly, and that's at
Or
heart.
that they can't do it.
Or
So
that
if
they
they
haven't
can't do it,
allowed themselves to do it.
yes, but exactly. I agree. It's a total projection. Ellen, I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with us. And I know you would be there live with everybody, but you're actually going to be on a plane to Singapore.
Yeah. To
When
do a conference on internet for
yeah.
international women.
If the plane had perfect Wi-Fi, that would have been an amazing place to beam in from. But I really do appreciate your time and thank you so much. And I will share your information with everybody. Not your personal information, your LinkedIn profile. And if anyone wants to follow Ellen, I would say please do. There's nothing but knowledge to gain and passion to absorb. So thank you again so much for everything.
Happy International Women's Day.
Yes, happy International Women's Day.